11 months after my husband died, I got an email from him at 6:17 in the morning. No greeting, no explanation, just one line: Nora, if Marin asks about the blue folder, do not give it to her. I read it 3 times before I remembered my sister had called the night before, asking that exact question, and by noon, a plumber was standing in my laundry room, pointing at a wall Caleb had sealed shut. My name is Nora Whitcomb. For 12 years, my husband, Caleb, and I ran Whitcomb Restorations, a small company that repaired homes after storms, floods, fires, and the quiet disasters that ruin people's lives before breakfast. We were not rich, but we were steady. We knew our clients by name. Our crews trusted us. When people called in panic, Caleb always said the same thing: "We are coming, you do not have to solve this alone." Caleb handled estimates, insurance claims, contracts, and all the paperwork I hated. I handled crews, schedules, vendors, and customers. He was careful. I was practical. Together, we worked. My younger sister, Marin, joined us 5 years before Caleb died. At first, it was supposed to be temporary. She had left a sales job, her marriage was shaky, and my mother kept saying Marin needed a soft place to land. Caleb hesitated. I remember that now. He did not say no, but he got quiet in the way he always did when something did not sit right with him. I told him, "She is my sister. We can trust her." That sentence would come back to punish me. Marin was charming. She could make angry homeowners calm down, make vendors laugh, and make herself sound useful in any room. She was not supposed to control payroll or bank access, but she helped with client referrals, outside partnerships, and vendor coordination. That meant she saw enough to understand how money moved. And I loved her too much to see danger in that. After Caleb died from a heart attack, the company became a place I survived, not a place I ran. I signed checks without really reading them. I approved payments because the names looked familiar. I answered calls, scheduled crews, and smiled when people said I was strong. I was not strong. I was numb. Marin came over often. She brought soup, groceries, coffee, and little things I never asked for. She sat beside me at Caleb's funeral and held my hand so tightly my fingers hurt. She whispered, "I am here, Nora. I will help you through this." That is the cruel thing about betrayal from family. It does not always come with a warning. Sometimes it brings dinner. Sometimes it cries with you. Sometimes it knows exactly which wound to touch because it watched you get it. The first strange thing happened on a Tuesday night. I was folding towels in the laundry room when Marin called. Her voice sounded casual, but there was a tightness under it, like she was trying too hard to sound normal. She asked if I had started going through Caleb's old business files. I said no. Then she asked if I had found a blue folder. I almost laughed. Caleb labeled everything. We had blue folders, red folders, green folders, folders inside folders. But Marin did not laugh with me. She said, "If you find one with vendor notes, just give it to me. I can sort it out for you." I asked why. There was a pause, not long, but long enough. She said Caleb had been confused near the end. He had kept duplicates, old drafts, things that might upset me if I did not understand them. Then she changed the subject and asked if I had eaten dinner. I told her I would look later. After we hung up, I stood there with a towel in my hands, feeling foolish for being uneasy. Grief makes suspicion feel like work. And I was tired of work. The next morning, Caleb's email arrived. At first, I thought it was spam or some cruel automatic message from an account I had forgotten to close. But it came from his private email, the one he used only for me, our accountant, and his doctor. "Nora, if Marin asks about the blue folder, do not give it to her." I sat at the kitchen table until my coffee went cold. At 9:40, the plumber arrived. His name was Arturo. I had called him because the laundry room had smelled damp for weeks. He checked the pipes, the washer hookups, the drain line. Then he tapped the wall behind the dryer and stopped. He asked if my husband had done any work on that wall. I said Caleb had patched it years ago after a leak. Arturo shook his head. He said, "This is not a patch. This is an access panel." He moved the dryer, cut through a thin line of caulk, and pulled away a clean piece of drywall. Behind it was a steel lockbox bolted between the studs. On the front was a label in Caleb's neat block letters. For Nora only. Open before trusting anyone. My knees went weak. The box had a keypad. Taped beneath it was a small envelope. Inside was one sentence. Use the date we stopped blaming ourselves. Only Caleb and I knew what that meant. Years earlier, we lost our baby girl at 21 weeks. For a long time, we blamed ourselves in different ways. The date we stopped was not the date she died. It was the day we went to the lake, placed 2 white flowers on the water, and said her name without apologizing. I typed in the numbers. The lock clicked. Inside was a blue folder, a small hard drive, a flash drive, bank statements, a sealed letter, and $15,000 in cash divided into envelopes. I opened the letter first. Nora, if you are reading this, then I either ran out of time or I was wrong about how far she would go. I am sorry. Marin has been stealing from us for at least 3 years. I read that sentence again and again, waiting for it to become something else. Marin. My sister. The girl I taught to ride a bike. The woman who cried on my shoulder when her marriage almost ended. The person who held me at Caleb's grave. Caleb's letter was calm, which made it worse. He wrote like a man trying to remove emotion so I could survive the facts. Marin had created a vendor company called Northline Client Services. Every month, Whitcomb Restorations paid Northline for client referrals, intake support, or emergency claim coordination. The descriptions sounded real enough that a tired owner would skim past them. And I had skimmed past them. The payments started small. $3,100. $4,700. Then $6,000, $9,000, sometimes more after profitable months. Caleb believed she had taken more than $380,000. But the money was not the worst part. He wrote that Marin had copied my signature onto vendor agreements. She had created a mirrored email account that looked like mine. She had sent approvals from that account on days I was out on job sites, where cell service was poor and I could not prove what I had seen or not seen. She had not just stolen from us. She had built a path to blame me. I sat on the laundry room floor with Caleb's letter in my lap. Arturo stood in the doorway, silent, pretending not to notice that my whole life had just shifted. For years, I thought betrayal was one dramatic moment. A confession. A slammed door. A voice raised in anger. But sometimes betrayal is quiet. It lives inside invoices, bank memos, passwords, and polite emails. Sometimes betrayal wears your sister's perfume while practicing your name. I called my best friend, Elise, before I called a lawyer. Elise was a forensic bookkeeper, the kind of person who could find a missing dollar in a hurricane. She came over with her laptop, a notebook, and the face she used when she was trying not to scare me. We spread everything across the kitchen table. The blue folder was arranged by month. Caleb had printed invoices, bank records, email headers, and handwritten notes. He had circled dates when Marin was out of town, but Northline billed for in-person client meetings. He had marked payments that landed 2 days before transfers into Marin's personal account. Elise did not speak for almost 20 minutes. Then she said, "Nora, this is not a mistake. This is a system." That sentence changed something in me. A mistake asks for forgiveness. A system asks for protection. The hard drive was password protected. I tried obvious passwords first. Caleb's birthday. Our anniversary. Our dog's name. Nothing worked. Then I tried the lake date again. It opened. There were folders by year. Inside were spreadsheets, scans, screenshots, contracts, and one video file named, "Watch this when you are ready." I was not ready. I clicked it anyway. Caleb appeared on screen, sitting in his office, wearing the gray sweater I had given him the Christmas before he died. His face looked thinner than I remembered. His eyes looked tired in a way I had missed while standing right beside him. He said my name, and I covered my mouth. He said he found the first false invoice by accident. He confronted Marin privately because he knew it would break me. She cried. She apologized. She blamed debt, shame, stress, and her husband's failing business. Caleb gave her 90 days to repay the first amount and resign quietly. She did neither. Instead, she created more documents. She made it look like I knew. She used phrases I used often enough to sound like me, but not enough to be me. Caleb looked into the camera and said, "I thought I was protecting your heart. I see now that I may have left you exposed." I am sorry, Nora. That was when I cried. Not because of the money. I cried because my husband had carried a war in silence, and my sister had handed him the weapon. Elise made copies of everything. Then she drove me to attorney Daniel Price, a man Caleb had contacted twice before his death. Mr. Price was calm, exact, and not easily shocked. He reviewed the letter, the records, and the video. Then he asked if Marin knew I had found the box. I said I did not think so. He said, "Keep it that way." By then, my phone had 6 missed calls from Marin and 2 from my mother. Mom left a voicemail saying Marin felt I was pulling away. She said grief could make people suspicious. She said I should not let business stress damage the only sister I had left. The only sister I had left. I listened to that line twice. Then I deleted the voicemail. That afternoon, Marin texted, "Lunch tomorrow?" I found some old company paperwork and thought we should go through it together. There it was. The blue folder had not been missing. It had been bait. Mr. Price told me to meet her, but not to accuse her. "Let her talk," he said. "People who think they are smarter than you often explain themselves by accident." So I went. Marin chose a bright little cafe downtown. White tables, tiny flowers, soft music. She looked polished, as always. Cream coat. Gold earrings. Gentle smile. If guilt had weight, she carried it well. She hugged me too long. She asked how I was sleeping, whether the house felt empty, whether I had considered selling it. Then she slid into business so smoothly I almost admired it. She said Caleb had kept messy records near the end. She said grief and stress had made him paranoid. She said some vendor files might look confusing without context. Then she touched my hand and said, "Nora, if you find anything that scares you, bring it to me first." I looked at her hand on mine and remembered holding that same hand when she was 12 and afraid of thunder. I asked, what kind of thing would scare me? Her smile stayed, but her eyes changed. She said, "Old numbers. Duplicate invoices. Things Caleb may have misunderstood." Then I said, "The blue folder?" Her face changed for less than a second. But I saw it. She asked where I heard that phrase. I said, "You asked me about it." She laughed too quickly and said, "Did I?" I barely remember what I say anymore. That was the moment my sister disappeared for me. Not because I knew she had stolen. I already knew that. It was because she sat across from me, looked at my grief, and decided I was still weak enough to use. After lunch, she walked me to my car and hugged me again. This time, I did not hug back. That night, an unknown number texted me. "Stop letting strangers dig through Caleb's files. You do not know what he was hiding." I took a screenshot and sent it to Mr. Price. Then I walked through my house and checked every lock. It is hard to explain fear when it comes from inside your own family. A stranger can scare you, but a stranger does not know where your spare key used to be. A stranger does not know which window sticks, which neighbor travels on weekends, which memories to use against you. Family does not just know your address. They know your soft spots. For the next week, Elise and Mr. Price followed the records. Northline was registered to a post office box 2 towns over. The listed manager did not exist. The phone number forwarded to a prepaid cell. Money from our company moved through Northline, then into Marin's personal account, her husband's old business account, and an LLC called Alder House Rentals. Alder House Rentals owned 2 duplexes near the college. My sister had bought rental property with money she stole from the company I was trying to keep alive after burying my husband. Mr. Price also found a draft civil complaint Caleb had prepared 6 months before he died. He had not filed it. Attached to it was a note to himself. Give her one final chance after audit. Protect Nora first. Protect Nora first. Those 3 words hurt more than any number in the file. Later, people would ask if Caleb's heart attack was really natural. I understand why. When a story has a villain, people want every tragedy to connect to that villain. I wanted that too for a while. I wanted one clean answer, one person to blame for every empty room. But the medical report said heart attack. His doctor said Caleb had risk factors we had ignored. There was no evidence that Marin caused his death directly. Still, some burdens do not appear on a death certificate. There is stress that sits beside a man at dinner while he asks his wife about her day. There are secrets he swallows because he thinks silence is love. I cannot say my sister killed my husband, but I can say she made his last year lonelier than it should have been. Mr. Price prepared a demand letter. Restitution. Return of stolen funds. Transfer of the duplexes. Payment for legal and audit costs. Written admission of civil liability. If she refused, we would file the complaint and refer the evidence for criminal review. I thought I would feel powerful. I felt sick. The night before the settlement meeting, my mother came to my house without calling. She stood on my porch holding a pie, like we lived in a world where dessert could fix fraud. She said Marin told her I was being influenced by outsiders. I asked, did she tell you what she did? Mom looked away. That look told me enough. She said she did not know all the details. She said Marin was fragile. She said prison would destroy her. She said Caleb would not want me to tear the family apart. I opened the door wider and said, Caleb is dead. Do not use him to defend the person who betrayed him. Mom flinched. For the first time in my life, I did not comfort her. When you stop being the family peacemaker, everyone treats you like you started the war. The settlement meeting was on Thursday at 2. I wore Caleb's watch. It was too large for my wrist, but I needed the weight of it. Marin arrived with her lawyer, Russell Vane, a narrow man with a practiced smile. She did not look at me at first. When she finally did, her eyes filled with tears. I almost believed them. That frightened me. Mr. Price began with the Northline payments, then the fake contracts, then the email metadata, then the bank transfers, then the duplex purchases through Alder House rentals. Russell interrupted twice, saying we were making assumptions. Mr. Price said, we are not making assumptions. We are reading transactions. Then he played Caleb's video. Marin looked down the entire time. When Caleb's voice filled the room, I thought it would break me. Instead, it steadied me. Grief had blurred my life, but the facts were sharp. After the video ended, Russell asked for a private break. Mr. Price said, not yet. The conference room door opened, and Marin's husband, Silas, walked in. Marin stood so fast her chair hit the wall. She whispered, what is he doing here? Silas looked older than I remembered. He held a folder with both hands. He did not sit beside Marin. He sat beside Mr. Price. That was when I knew there was another layer. Silas had found a loan application for one of the duplexes. His signature was on it. He had never signed it. He had also found a personal guarantee tied to an old business account. Marin had used him too. For the first time all day, Marin stopped crying. She said, Silas, please. He said, you do not get to please me now. There are moments when a room changes temperature. That was one of them. Mr. Price slid the revised demand across the table. $412,000 in stolen funds. Audit and legal costs. Transfer of both duplexes. Repayment tied to the forged loan exposure. Written confession for civil purposes. If she missed one deadline, we filed everything. Russell read the number and went pale. Marin said I was ruining her life. I looked at her then. Really looked. I wanted to ask whether she had smiled at Caleb while he knew. I wanted to ask if she practiced my signature at her kitchen table. I wanted to ask if any of our childhood had been real to her. But anger would have given her something to perform against. So I said, no, Marin. I am documenting what you did. The negotiation lasted 4 hours. At one point, Russell suggested a smaller payment and no property transfer. Mr. Price closed his folder and said we could file by morning. Marin asked to speak to me alone. I said no. That single word felt like learning a new language. By 6:22 p.m., she signed. The first payment was due by 5 the next business day. $300,000. The duplex transfers had to begin within 10 days. The remaining balance would be paid over 75 days. If one payment was late, Even by one day, the complaint and criminal referral moved forward. People think justice feels like a door slamming. Sometimes it sounds like paper sliding across a conference table. When Marin finished signing, she looked at me and asked, "Are you happy now?" I said, "I am not happy. I am free to start being honest." Then I told her she no longer had permission to call me, visit my home, contact my employees, or send messages through our mother. Being my sister did not give her lifetime access to the person she tried to frame. Her mouth trembled. For 1 second, I saw the little girl afraid of thunder. Then I saw the woman who used my dead husband as a shield. I walked out. In the parking lot, I sat in my car with Caleb's watch heavy on my wrist. I did not drive for almost 20 minutes. I just listened to myself breathe. At 4:58 p.m. the next day, Mr. Price texted me. "First payment received." I stared at those 3 words until they blurred. The next 75 days were strange. Every payment felt like relief and insult at the same time. Relief because she was complying. Insult because it proved she had access to money while I had been lying awake wondering if I could keep the company open. The duplex transfers went through. Elise helped me rebuild the books. We closed every account Marin had touched, added dual approvals, changed passwords, notified vendors, and brought in an outside audit team. I expected shame when people learned something had happened. Instead, people stayed. One of our crew chiefs said, "We knew something was off. We just did not know how to say it." That hurt, but it helped. Trust is not only about believing people. It is about building systems where belief is not the only lock on the door. Mom did not speak to me for 3 weeks. Then she came by on a Sunday afternoon. No pie this time. Just herself. She said Marin was leaving town. She and Silas were separating. She had started counseling and a debt recovery program. Mom said this like proof that I could soften now. I asked if Marin had admitted what she did. Mom said, "Not fully." I said, "Then she has not started." Mom cried quietly. She said she had wanted to believe the daughter who seemed most desperate. I told her I had needed her to protect the daughter who was telling the truth. She said she was sorry. I believed her. But an apology cannot rebuild a bridge while someone is still standing in the river pretending they never burned it. So I told Mom I would see her sometimes, but not as Marin's messenger. Not as her defender. Not as the family judge. Just as my mother, if she could manage that. We are still working on it. As for Marin, I have not spoken to her since the settlement room. She made every payment. The final one cleared on a rainy Wednesday morning. Mr. Price called and said, "It is done." I thanked him, hung up, and waited to feel victory. It did not come. What came was quiet. For the first time in almost a year, there was no next deadline, no hidden file, no unknown number, no new betrayal waiting to be opened. Just quiet. And in that quiet, I missed Caleb so badly I had to sit on the kitchen floor. Because getting justice does not bring back the person who tried to protect you. It does not restore every holiday, every childhood memory, every version of your family you thought was real. It gives you ground to stand on. That matters. But you still have to learn how to stand. I kept the company. For a while, I thought I would sell it because every folder, truck, and invoice reminded me of what happened. Then one morning, a woman called after a fire damaged her house. She was crying so hard she could barely give me the address. I heard myself say what Caleb used to say. "We are coming. You do not have to solve this alone." And I understood why I could not let Marin be the final story of the life Caleb and I built. I also started a small fund in Caleb's name to help people facing financial abuse inside families or small businesses. Not because I am healed. I am not. But because I know what it feels like to stare at a document with your name forged on it and wonder whether anyone will believe you. I want someone else to be believed faster than I was. Sometimes people ask if I forgive Marin. I do not know what answer they want. If forgiveness means I no longer wake up angry, then some days, maybe. If it means I wish her growth instead of ruin, I can say yes on my better days. But if forgiveness means giving her access to me again, then no. No is not bitterness. No is a boundary with a pulse. Family can be sacred. I still believe that. But sacred does not mean untouchable. It does not mean unaccountable. It does not mean someone can harm you, hide behind old photographs, and call your pain disloyalty. The people who love you should not require you to become smaller so they can stay comfortable. Caleb's last email is printed now. I keep it inside my desk drawer. Not on the wall. Not as decoration. As a reminder. Nora, if Marin asks about the blue folder, do not give it to her. He was warning me about a folder. But in the end, he taught me something larger. Do not hand your truth to the person who benefits from burying it. And do not confuse keeping peace with staying silent while someone steals the life you are trying to survive.